I
Yes.
can see the slide,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Okay, okay. Please now mute your mics. So I will start again.
Okay.
Okay, the design consideration of the structure. So primarily there are different type of the design consideration that we consider in design of any structural component. Number one is the strength criteria. So what is the strength criteria? Strength criteria is that the maximum applied stress should be less than equal to the material strength. Just like in our steel structure, in the tension member design criteria, we are keeping the maximum yield stress to the 90% of the yield value, and for the rupture and the fracture criteria, so the maximum applied stress should be less than equal to the 75% of the ultimate stress value. So this criteria is called the strength criteria. Second criteria is the deformation criteria. So this deformation criteria is the ability of a structure to support the specified load without undergoing appreciable deformation. So how we can control this deformation criteria? Different design code has specified certain limit. For example, in the beam design for a conventional residential building, code says that the deformation or deflection in the beam should not be more than span divided by 360. So why we are controlling this? Because if the deformation will become very large, so they will disturb the overall structure system. And along with the strength and the deformation criteria, the third criteria is the stability criteria. So what is the stability criteria? Ability of a structure or a structural member to support a given load without experiencing a sudden change in its configuration, which is referred as a buckling. Normally, this phenomena occur in column or in the axially loaded member, where the member is subjected to the compression load or the compressive forces. So here the question arises that what is the difference between the deformation and stability? Actually, a deformation is the progressive phenomena. Progressive phenomena mean that if we are keep on increasing the load on a beam, or when a line element is subjected to the transversal load, so the deformation and deflection is keep on increasing. But unlike the deformation instability, what happens when a column is subjected to the axial load? So when we are keep on increasing the load, the column remains stable. So we can't observe any later deformation until we are approaching to a certain load value, and at this load value, so the column become a slightly deflected in the lateral position. So if we apply any further load, so it suddenly bent in lateral direction and it failed. So this referred as a buckling. So today we will discuss the stability criteria in detail. So next question arises that we define the instability instead of stability. Actually, there is no any definition available for the stability. Stability means that, for example, how I can refer that a structure is 70% stable, or it is 100% stable, or it is 50% stable. We cannot say. So we cannot judge the stability level of the structure. But anyhow, we can only differentiate between the stability and instability. So instability is the point at which the, the structure member lost its capability to sustain the load. So change, so how we can judge the instability? So instability can be judged by the change in the geometric deformation, so change in geometry of the structure or structural component under compression. So which results or resulting in the loss of ability to resist loading is called the instability. So how we can judge when the deformation in the structure become very large, or when the geometric configuration suddenly change. So at the point when this large deformation will occur, we may refer as a instability. And before that, the structure will be remain 100% stable. So that's why we discuss the stability in terms of instability. So we can define the instability by the change in its geometric configuration or the loss of capability in sustaining the load. So here there are some metaphorical examples to explain the equilibrium at different stages. So for example, I can relate the unstable equilibrium at the equilibrium at which the structure becomes unstable. So structure is unstable when small perturbation or disturbance produce the larger movement or the very high deformation in the structure, and the structure will never come back to its original position. This stage is related with the buckling of the compression member. When the load on the column is equal to or more than the buckling load, If we are moving the load, the column will never come back to original position and it will not be able to withstand the load anymore. So the example is that, for example, this ball which is on the altitude. So if we are moving the ball on either side, so this ball will never come back to its position. So which is referred as a unstable equilibrium, which we are relating with the buckling of the column. So in the natural equilibrium, so natural equilibrium means that when we want, we cannot decide whether it is in the stable or unstable equilibrium. Small perturbation or the small changes cause the larger movement, but the structure can be brought back to its original equilibrium position with no work. So here this diagram at the bottom, it's refer the equilibrium to the natural state. If we are moving the ball to either side, so the ball will attain its new position. So here we can relate to the a inelastic range of the structure. For example, when a structure enters its plastic range, it means that the structure will attain its new position. If we are moving the load, so we cannot restore the plastic deformation. The third stage is the stable stage or stable equilibrium. It means that, for example, if we are loading the structure to a value less than equal to its critical load, so the member will be stable. It means that if we are removing the load, so the structure or the member will come back to its original position. Just like in this if we are moving the ball to the either side, so ball will come back to its original position. So we can say that in the stable equilibrium, the structure is within the elastic range, and in the neutral equilibrium, structure will be in its inelastic range, and in the unstable equilibrium, the structure is approaching to its collapse limit or the collapse state. The definition of stability had nothing to do with a change in the geometry of the structure under compression. So change in geometry of structure under compression is not referred as a instability. Rather, it is referred as a buckling. So it means that instability in a compression member will be referred as a buckling. So what is a buckling? Buckling is the sudden bending of the member due to the compressive forces. It means that when a line element is subjected to the compressive axial forces, so when we are keep on increasing the load, so it suddenly bend. It means that there will be no any bending at certain load, but when the load is approaches to a particular load value, it will suddenly bend in the later direction. So buckling is the sudden bending in the later direction in a axial member due to the compressive forces, which is different from the bending. In bending, when a line element is subjected to the transversal forces, so bending is keep on increasing when we are keep on increasing the load, so which is not sudden. Buckling is a sudden phenomena and bending is the progressive or gradual phenomena. So next question is that how we can judge the stability of the equilibrium. So stability is judged by the two parameters. Number one, the large deformation of the structure, or when the structure enters into the inelastic state. So next is the definition of the column. It's very simple. We have already studied in many subjects. So column is a line element which is subjected to the axial forces. This axial force may be compressive, may be tensile, but mostly in most of the cases we discuss the column which is subjected to the axial compressive forces. The term is frequently used to describe a vertical member, which is not true. Any horizontal member which is also subjected to the axial forces may also be referred as a column. So column is the loading behavior of the line element. If the load is acting parallel to the length of the member or the axis of the member will be referred as a column. For example, if a beam is subjected to the axial force, so this will not be termed as a beam, this will be termed as a column. So we have already known that the structural member, when they are subjected to tensile forces, mostly they are stable. So they only fail when the applied stresses are more than the ultimate strength or the yield strength. So it means that we can achieve its full capacity. But the same member, when it is subjected to the compressive forces, So its capacity will be lesser than the when it is subjected to the tensile forces. So there are certain phenomena which are affecting the capacity of the same member when it is subjected to the compressive forces, which are referred as a second order effect. So these effects are the secondary bending effect, imperfection during the fabrication, inaccurate positioning of the load, and asymmetry of the cross section, and all these parameters can induce the premature failure. So asymmetry means that the beam is not prismatic, the cross section is not constant throughout the length, and the inaccurate positioning means that instead of the concentric load, we are having the eccentric load, which is having certain eccentricity. So type of the buckling, we already know that it may be categorized into three types: overall buckling, local buckling, and lateral torsion buckling. Overall buckling we have discussed in the compression member. Overall buckling can be controlled by restricting the overall slenderness ratio to the specified value, which is 200 for the compression member. And local buckling is the flying local buckling and the web local buckling, and how we can control by controlling the B over T ratio of the flange and the web. And lateral torsion buckling is also the overall buckling in beam. If the unbraced length of the beam is very large, then instability in beam will be the lateral torsion buckling. This means that instability in column is the buckling, and instability in case of the beam is the lateral torsion buckling. So the design of the most of the compressive member is governed by the overall buckling. So maximum compressive load which can be carried before the failure occurs due to the excessive deflection in the plane of the greatest slenderness ratio. It means that a member will always buckle about the axis for which the slenderness ratio is larger, or for which the radius of gyration is minimum. So AISC and different design codes says that there must not be any local buckling before overall buckling. So in most of the design cases, we only consider the overall buckling. Typical overall buckling in column of the frame structure and compression member of the trusses. These are the members. So for example, here you can see an example of the frame structure, and the column they can buckle. The red line shows the buckling of the column in the center due to the excessive compressive forces. So there are some parameters which govern the buckling. For example, number one criteria is the slenderness ratio. So slenderness ratio is the ratio between the effective length over the or the minimum radius of gyration. If the column is free to rotate at each end, then buckling always takes place about the axis for which the slenderness ratio is larger or radius of gyration is minimum. So next is we will study the type of the column. So depending upon the failure behavior, so we can categorize the column into three distinct types or three different types. So please understand here, or please point to be note here is that the classification of the column is depending upon the failure behavior. It is not depending upon the slenderness ratio. So actually indirectly we are converting the failure behavior into the slenderness ratio. For example, a short column is the column which will fail due to the either crushing of the material or yielding of the material. The column which has relatively very low slenderness ratio is referred as a short column. So in this case, the length of the column is less than or equal to the 10 times of the least cross-sectional dimension. So if a column is having the dimension A into B, if B is less than A, then the length should be less than equal to 10 times of the B. So failure occurs when stress over the cross section approaches to the yield or crushing value of the material. So basic classification is based upon this criteria. It means that a short column will always fail either due to crushing of the material or due to the yielding of the material. So it means that we are capable of achieving the full load carrying capacity of the column. So normally the short column are having the very low slenderness ratio. So in this type of the column, so the mostly the axial forces are dominant because the length of the column is very small. So there are very less chances of the bending or buckling in later direction. So it means that the flexure stresses are not dominant. So failure is primarily due to the axial forces. So similarly, in the short column, such element fail due to the excessive lateral deflection or buckling at a value of stress considerably less than the yield or crushing value. So if in a cylinder column flexure stresses are dominant and compressive stresses are not too important. So cylinder column is the long column. So long column means that the failure will occur at a stress value much less than the yield value or the crushing value. It means that if the failure stress is less than yield value, it means that failure is being occur within the elastic range. So we can also refer the failure type as a elastic failure or elastic buckling. So the buckling occurs in the lateral direction due to the at a stress value less than the yield stress or the crushing value. So normally this type of the column are having very large slenderness ratio. So we can simply refer that empirically that if a column is having the length equal to 30 times of the least cross sectional dimension, then its failure behavior will be like the long column or cylinder column. It means that the column will have the failure stress less than the yield stress or crushing failure. So second type of the column are the failure behaviors in between the short column and long column. Long column means cylinder column. So it means that the failure will be the combined failure due to the crushing of the material and due to the buckling. So in cylinder column, normally the failure is the bending due to the excessive lateral deformation. So in cylinder column, the flexure stresses are dominant. So axial stresses are very less. So primarily due to the flexure stresses or bending stresses causing the failure in the long column. But intermediate column, both the crushing or the local buckling occur at some parts, but overall failure will be due to the lateral buckling or lateral bending. So it's just like that in the intermediate column, some of the element will undergo heating, just like the local flank buckling will occur or local web buckling will occur before the overall buckling. So in that case, the strength will be in between the cylinder column value and in the short column values. So for intermediate column, length of the column will be in between 10 to 30 times of the least cross section dimension. Okay, next is that we will study the characteristics of the different type of the column. Actually, in real column or in ideal column. So ideally, when we are deriving some equation or deriving some formula, so we have to consider certain assumptions. So what are the different assumptions? Which are the assumptions for the ideal column? So number one is that it is prismatic, having the constant cross section throughout the length. It means that the cross section is constant throughout the length. And second assumption is that material is homogeneous. And number three is loading is perfectly axial. The load is passing through the center line of the cross section. And number four is pin ended condition, simply spotted, are frictionless. It means that if we are considering the both ends are pin ended, it means that they are free to rotate and there is no friction between the pins. But in actual cases, real column will not be prismatic. They will have some imperfection, maybe initial crookedness or out of plane deformation. So they will not be perfectly prismatic. Prismatic means the cross section will not be same throughout the length. So it is very difficult in the concrete column in making the formwork. We cannot control the width or the cross section dimensions same throughout the length. So there might be some difference throughout the length. Similarly, in the steel structure, we are having the out of plane deformation or initial crookedness also. So centroid may not lie on the line joining the centroid of the end of the section. So actual centroid will not be passing through the center of the member. So we will discuss in the next slide. And the fourth condition is that load is not acting along the centroidal axis. It means that load, in actual cases, load may never be the concentric, so it may be eccentric. So what are the reasons? So we will discuss in the next slide. For example, in this slide, the black line is the theoretical center line, which we can plot by joining the centroid of the top section and centroid of the bottom section. But the actual center line may be this red one. Why? Because, for example, in the concrete column, the distribution of the aggregate may not be same on the either side. So the center line is the center of the mass at any cross section. So actual center line is the function of the distribution of the material along the length. So which may cause the eccentricity within the column. And further, we may have another type of eccentricity if the load is not acting along the theoretical center line. So load is eccentric to the or acting parallel to the theoretical center line. So in that case, we may have two type of eccentricity, ET, which is the difference between the theoretical center line and actual center line, and EP is the eccentricity in the load, which is the distance between the loading axis and the theoretical center line. So what will be the effect of this eccentricity? So here, total stress in the member will be summation of the axial stress and summation of the bending stress. Axial stress be computed by the load divided by the cross sectional area, which are the compressive stresses. But if the load is having some eccentricity either due to the due to the ET or EP, or due to the combined effect of the theoretical eccentricity and loading eccentricity. So due to this, at any section there is the movement acting. For example, in this case, if I am cutting the cross section over here, the total eccentricity is equal to ET plus EP, which is causing the bending of the section in clockwise direction. So due to this bending, half side of the neutral axis is subjected to compression and half side is subjected to tension. So total stress will be sigma A, the axial stresses plus the bending stresses, which are P over A plus minus mc over I or my over I. We know that the moment m will be equal to P into E, load into the eccentricity, and I over C will be equal to the section modulus. Here you will see that the axial stresses are, these are negative, which are completely P over A, and these, for example, if I consider this theoretical center line as a neutral axis, then half of the section will be in compression and half of this cross section will be in tension due to the bending stresses, which is the function of the eccentricity of the load. So if we are summing up, we are having the net profile. So these compressive stresses are being summed up on one side, and they are being also algebraically summed up on the other side, which are counting the effect. This means that the net stresses are more. So this extra bending stress due to the eccentricity of the load with reference to the theoretical center line and also with reference to the actual center line is causing the extra stresses. So these extra stresses that we are ignoring, so these stresses are actually which are causing the premature buckling or premature failure of the column. So here in this diagram, if we are plotting the lateral bending versus the applied load, so if we are having the idle column, so if we are keep on increasing the load, so we cannot observe any lateral deformation until the column will fail due to crushing. So column will not buckle in any lateral direction, so failure is predominantly due to the axial forces. But if there is any eccentricity, if we are applying the load, so the column or the member will start bending in the lateral direction due to this Fletcher effect or this bending moment, and then ultimately we will approach to the failure load. So a column which is having the eccentricity, the failure stress will always be less than the value corresponding to the ideal column. So more will be the eccentricity, lesser will be the failure load, and more will be the deformation corresponding to any load value. So next is the critical load. So critical load of a cylinder bar or column subjected to axial compressive force is that value of the axis load that is just sufficient to keep the bar in a slightly deflected configuration. So there are some grammatical errors, so I will change it. So actually, there are two definitions of the critical load value. So actual definition is that is the load value at which the column will undergo a slightly deflected configuration. So it means that at the load value you will see a very small lateral deformation. But or you can also say that this is the load value at which after that the column lost its capability to sustain the load. So in this example, for example, I have considered a long column. So assume that the cross-sectional area of this column is equal to 1, just for the understanding. And this column is made of 836 steel. 836 steel means that the yield stress is 250 megapascal. If I will apply the load 10, 10 divided by 1 is equal to it means that the applied stress are 10 megapascal and we are having the 240 megapascal reserve capacity. So if I apply the load 10 or applied stress 10 megapascal, the column will be remain straight. So it will not undergo any lateral deformation. And I'm keep on increasing the load. If I'm keep on increasing load to 10, 30, 40, 50, 60, maybe 80. So at 80 megapascal again, so when the load will be 80, the applied stress will be 80 megapascal. So column is again perfectly straight. It will not undergo in lateral deformation or we cannot observe any lateral bending. So column is perfectly straight until, for example, I approach to a value of 100. So at 100 again the column is straight, so we cannot observe any lateral deformation. At this point, we are assuming that we still have a reserve capacity 150 megapascal because the yield strength of the material is 250 megapascal. But when I apply the load equal to 101 Newton, which is producing the stress 101 megapascal. When I apply the load 101, so 101 is any fictitious load. So at this load, the column undergo a slightly lateral deformation. So at this point, I can observe a small deformation in the lateral direction or out of plane direction. So it means that if I will remove the load, maybe if I will reduce the load back to 100, the column will again become straight. But again, if I will increase the load to 101, again I can observe the a load, a small deflected shape of the column. But at this value, when a column is attaining a slightly deflected configuration, this load is referred as a critical load. Okay, here at this point, if we are not having the concept of the buckling of the member, so we are assuming that we still have 149 megapascal reserve capacity. But what happens if I increase the load from 101 megapascal to 101.1 megapascal? It means that if I further increase the load by zero point 0.1 Newton, so column will suddenly bend in lateral direction and it will fail. It means that the column is unable to sustain any load beyond this value. So this load is referred as a P critical. So it means that if the load will be less than or equal to P critical, this is the condition corresponding to the stable equilibrium. And when the load will be exactly equal to P critical, for example, I have given the example of 101, and at this load point we can see lateral deformation or a small slightly deflected configuration is referred as a critical load. And if I this is the neutral equilibrium, if I further increase load even a to a very small fraction, so it suddenly undergo a very large deformation, it will buckle and it will not be able to sustain load to any further value. So this column will become unstable. So here you can see that we can define the P critical in two ways. it is the maximum load carrying capacity before the buckling of the member, or it is a load value at which the column sustain or slightly a deflected configuration. So in this bottom, this diagram, so if I plot the curve between the lateral deformation, so this theta is the lateral deformation, you can replace with delta. And if I'm keep on increasing the load, so if I'm keep on increasing the load, for example, 0, 10, 20, 30, 80, 90 until 100, so we cannot observe any lateral deformation. When the load is exactly equal to 101 or equal to P critical, so we will have a small deformation in the lateral side. But if I further increase the load, column will suddenly fail and we will have the zero deformation. So this condition, this part is the when the load is P less than P critical stable part, when the P is equal to P critical, neutral equilibrium, when the P is more than P critical, then it's certain load. Okay, gentlemen, here I would like to have a break. Maybe I will have the break of 15 minutes or maybe 10 minutes. Okay, let's have 15-minute break. So I will resume at 1:55. In the meantime, if someone is having the question, he may ask me. So I will just take the one or two questions until 1:45. Then I will resume my lecture at 1:55. Okay, 191. Please open your mic and ask the question.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम सर।
वालेकुम सलाम।
सर जो सबसे पहला लेक्चर था उसमें आपने कहा था जो शेयर फार्मूला है वो सिर्फ उसी वक्त एप्लीकेबल होगा जब अप्लाइड लोड जो है वो वर्टिकल साइड्स के पैरेलल हो। अगर हमारी जो साइड्स हैं वो वर्टिकल नहीं होती, इंक्लाइंड होती है, देन फिर उसका शेयर फार्मूला अप्लाई करेंगे या नहीं? अगर नहीं करेंगे तो उस पर कौन सा फार्मूला अप्लाई होगा?
उसमें एक्चुअली वो लेक्चर इस वक्त मेरी स्लाइड ओपन नहीं है, तो मैं उसका आंसर आपको ऐसे बताऊंगा। उस वक्त भी वो एप्लीकेबल है, लेकिन उस केस में वो स्ट्रेसेस ज़्यादा दे रहा होगा। अंडरस्टैंड मी? इफ आई वांट टू डिटरमिन द एक्यूरेट वैल्यू, so if the accurate stress is 100, so in that case the formula will give you the answer 120. It is overestimating the stress. Overestimating means that we are on the safer side. If we are considering the larger applied stress, our cross section will be larger. So actually why it is overestimating the stress? Because we have studied the concept of complementary stresses. Okay, so in the complementary stresses, the stresses which are on the vertical cross section, they are exactly equal to the horizontal stresses. But
Yes.
if the edges will not be straight, so actually the element is rotated, so it will have two components. One is acting perpendicular to the horizontal shear stress and one is acting to the parallel to. So in that case, the complementary component will be the component, it will not be a resultant. You understand me? For example,
Yes,
if the resultant force is 100, then the complementary stress is the component of the 100, and component of the 100 may be 0 to 200. So in that case, actually we are overestimating it. So again, we are on the safer side. So any further question? I will just take one more question before the break. Then I will take all your question at the end of lecture, when I will resume my lecture after the break. So who is Inamullah? Inamullah, please you may ask the question. Please open your mic.
सर ये सेंट्रल कॉलम में ये यील्डिंग नहीं थी?
एक्चुअली वो यील्डिंग होगी एक्चुअली जब भी फेलियर जब भी होगा ना, एक्चुअली यहाँ पे थोड़ा सा कंफ्यूजिंग है। मैं आपको थोड़ा सा एक्चुअली देयर आर सम फॉर्मल आल्सो, सो इट इज़ बेटर टू आस्क द क्वेश्चन इन इंग्लिश. So actually what happened, the instability occur within the elastic range. You understand me? For example, if I say that a long column fail at a value of 100 megapascal.
Yes,
100 megapascal. It means that it still have 115 megapascal reserve capacity. You know what happened at 100 megapascal? It is slightly deflected. When it is slightly deflected, it is having the later deformation. It means that if I will further increase the load, due to this later deformation, there will be some extra moment acting.
Yes, sir.
So in that case, if I will apply the load, so due to this extra moment, stress will suddenly change from 100 to 250.
Yes, sir.
and this change will occur within seconds. So we cannot monitor this phenomena. So it means that I am
Okay.
just referring that failure is failure when the instability occurs, which is corresponding to the 100 megapascal stress. So it means that just to avoid the complication, to make the calculation simple, so I am just referring the point where the instability occurs or where the stress suddenly changes as a failure stress. So actually we will discuss in detail how to include the effect of the eccentricity and out of plane deformation. But at the moment we are just discussing the ideal curve. So today we will inshallah when I will drive the expression, so I will explain in detail. Okay, I will
Yes.
not take any further questions, so I will give you the break for the 10 minutes, so I will
Thank you,
resume my
sir.
lecture at 1:55. So I'm stopping the recording and also the sharing. So I will start the recording again.